Hey, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Spirit-Anointed Leadership. So blessed to have you with us today on today's podcast. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today. And I'm excited because we're going to do something that we've never done before. We're going to talk about a subject that we've never talked about before. And that's because I've got my good friend Wes Duff joining us. Wes, thanks so much for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. And Wes, we're going to talk a little bit about your story, and we're going to get to the topic matter of our conversation here in just a minute. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, we're going to talk about not leading with vision. Yes, you heard me correctly, not leading with vision. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the exact same thing I thought of the first time that Wes said that to me. I'll never forget, he and I were in a conversation together, and he said, Chris, one of the things that I think it's important, at least in my context, is to not lead with vision. And as soon as it came out of his mouth, all these thoughts are going through my brain. I'm thinking, but wait, doesn't vision leak? Don't we have to give a fresh dose of vision on a regular basis? Don't we have to start with vision, continue with vision, and have vision on the back end? Don't we have to have vision just filling our hearts and our minds and our mouths to the people that we serve and that we love as Spirit-Anointed leaders? Isn't that part of our job? And so when he said that, my mind just kind of, it began to blow. And I said, Wes, we've got to talk about that. Like, can I have you on the Spirit-Anointed Leadership podcast and talk about that? Now, he agreed to it, and he actually talked me through some of it. And I just think it's going to be so insightful. I think there are going to be things that you learn and that I learn as a result of today's podcast that perhaps we haven't learned from anyone else. At least I certainly have. I haven't. So, Wes, thanks again for joining us. But I really want people to get to know you for a second before they get to know this awesome philosophy that you've got. So give us a sense of your background. I mean, we could do a whole nother podcast because God has done amazing things in your life. And your story is one of the most amazing stories of anyone I know in ministry today. But would you mind just giving us, for lack of a better word, a bit of a Cliff's Notes version of your background? Synopsis of your background. Were you raised in a Christian home? Yeah, what was your background like? And let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, wasn't raised in a Christian home. My parents were not antagonistic versus faith, and we could go to the local church for Sunday school or something if we wanted, or there was an event for church. They would encourage that. They didn't mind that. After teenage years, drugs and alcohol, I was working at Radio Shack. Some guy came in and said, hey, you want to leave for the summer and go follow this band called Fish Around? So I did.
Really?
And we just went all over the country, just going to concerts, hanging out. That led to a lot of depravity, sinful lifestyle type stuff, and life spiraled out of control.
Wow.
It was at one of those shows. I was coming out of, I think, a Detroit winter concert, I believe, and somebody handed me a gospel tract in the middle of 50 to 100,000 people out in the parking lot.
Wow.
And it started a journey, and went home, found the only Christian I knew, walked into a church of 12 people, gave my life to Christ.
Wow.
6 weeks later, I was preaching. So it was kind of a whirlwind experience and journey. So I would describe myself like devil's outcast, totally bankrupt at the point of salvation, nothing to offer. The local church loved me, clothed me, fed me, educated, and gave me a purpose. So I just feel eager to get back to the local body. That's how it would be a Cliff Notes version of that.
Wow. So I want to reiterate. So you came someone gave you this gospel tract. You walk into a church of 12 people. And
Yep.
Candidly, right now, you're leading a church of 1,000, or more than that.
Yep. Yep.
I just want to encourage some of our pastors that lead smaller congregations. You might have a Wes Duff in your midst. And you said it, but repeat it. How long did it take from the time that you walked in the local church, got saved, and you were preaching? How long was that?
About 6 weeks.
About 6 weeks. Wow. So obviously there's an apostolic gift on you and a powerful gifting on you. So you ended up pastoring a church there in Ohio, which is where you're from, right? Is that true?
Right. Yeah. Yes. They were the church that gave me an internship about 6 months in the youth ministry. ended up being what would be my wife's home church.
Okay.
And just a lot of mentors there, a lot of people. They always believed in me, cared for me, loved me, and just really indebted to their ministry towards my family.
Wow, that's huge. Now, you ended up coming then, eventually, God did some great work in you there and through you there, and you led that church in a great way. And eventually you felt called to Red Cedar. And I remember like it was yesterday, our interview conversation with you, and I was just so impressed with you way back then. And you walked into a situation where the former senior pastor had been asked to step down, and there was some unhealth going on among the staff. It ended up unfortunately being a pretty toxic situation, and yet you walked into that situation. So talk to me about God calling you to Rice Lake, Wisconsin, to Red Cedar Church, and what was a process of that calling in your life? Can we talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I was actually pursuing a Master's of Art and Theology from Fuller Seminary,
Okay.
and I was doing a vocational calling. I didn't expect anything big from the class. It was, hey, grab your syllabus and start doing your work.
Okay.
Not that I wasn't exciting, but I didn't know that life change was coming around the corner.
Right.
And one of the exercises was to write down your dream church, where you'd want to serve with your dream location. And then the added sauce to that was, don't be a suffering servant. Really, whatever would stoke your life, whatever, write down everything. And the exercise slightly annoyed me because I'm like, who gets that? and so I did it, and I was obnoxious about what I wanted.
Okay.
And about 3 weeks later, Red Cedar's profile came across somehow on the internet, and I read it, and then it made me read something else. And I'm like, that's just what I wrote down.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. Wow. I didn't know one Wesleyan pastor in a relationship anyways, and didn't know anyone up here. I prayed about my wife, and she wasn't even that concerned, like, yeah, whatever, send your resume up there, no one knows you. And so I prayed about my friend. He read the profile. He's like, man, this sounds perfect for you. And then it got real. About a week later, the phone rang, and then it was like off to the races. And Kelly and I had lived in our town for 41 years, so we haven't moved around.
Wow.
That was Kelly's. Kelly's only been to, we've served a couple different churches, but that was her home church, and it was a dream come true for us to go back and pastor her home church for her.
Yeah.
And so that was a major shift for us. And so we fell in love with the Wesleyan way. We loved the GLR. We loved the Wesleyan theological papers. We started to feel at home, and ultimately we fell in love with Red Cedar, and it just God kept opening doors to make that happen. Yeah. And so when we started interviewing with other churches, because we felt called to do so, we actually shut down like 6 or 7 other interviews with churches and just only pursued Red Cedar.
Wow.
And had already resigned. We felt called to resign, and so we didn't even know if it'd work out. So it was a big trust thing for us, and we landed here and just loved the people. Red Cedar. It's a dream location for me. It's the people. I love these people. They take care of our family, love on us, encourage us, and it's just a great fit. So just really God ordained for our family and our calling.
Praise God for that. And I just want to give kudos here for a second for every ministry spouse that moves with their spouse to a place. So Kelly moves away from her childhood home, her childhood church and all that, and moves a bunch of hours north to a place she's never, you guys didn't used to vacation up there. There was nothing. There was no automatic pull or draw, but I just want to give a shout out to Kelly and all the Kellys of churches and who follow their spouse to where God leads them. And so, yeah, thank you, Kelly, for your willingness to move. And we'll talk about this on a whole nother day, but she talked you into a hobby farm, and so now you've got a hobby farm. Congratulations. And
yeah, I'm a really poor farmer.
But can we just be honest for just a second? What kind of culture did you end up inheriting? And then we'll talk about don't lead with vision. But what was the reality as far as you're concerned? And it doesn't matter. I tried to do a few things there. A guy by the name of Jack Lynn had tried to help. Another guy by the name of Steve Norman had tried to help. But what did you actually inherit when you showed up at Red Cedar?
I would say, probably a discouraged setting. They had experienced so many wins. If I would describe Red Cedar at that point, they would have been like a football team who was really good at offense, but really had no defense.
Okay.
So they were winning. As long as the offense was on the field, they never had to deal with a virus or a hurt, so when things started, COVID was hard for everyone. They had a pastoral change in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
And they just started to see things decrease rapidly when they had been up and to the right for a very long period of time. A 5 to 8 year run that, they had never experienced. Maybe other churches in this town had not experienced. So it was all up and to the right. And so they were just hurt, confused. There were lots of things, in that shifting, from the pastoral change to the staff, people are no longer in ministry. People had to shift in ministry.
Wow.
And so when the team's losing, it's depressing, it's hurtful. And because there was a lot, I was pretty much greeted with this. If you are who you say you are, that's great. Let's wait and see. That would be a description of the culture.
Wow.
Like to see, all right, as long as you're not selling us something, we're all in. And it just took some times and for philosophy change and trust and trauma to be healed and hurts to be healed. It's just taken some time.
And so that leads, thank you, Wes, for doing that. That then leads into your statement about whatever you do, don't lead with vision. So let's talk about that for a minute. Because so many people, I think the person I look at in the mirror every morning would have been tempted to say, okay, you're a hurting church. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to feed you a whole lot of vision and isn't life going to be great? But you actually discerned, nope, that's the opposite of what I want to do in some way. So talk to us about that. Talk to us about the mindset there.
So I think it's gospel-oriented leadership in some ways. Think about the way that God leads us. We read verses that Christ died for us while we were yet sinners. So that there's just no boasting or bragging. I think what God does is sets up his unconditional love for us. And then he says, I'll be with you no matter what happens.
Amen.
Sometimes in vision language, it's these things will happen and then we're going to win. Well, you win with God on day one.
Amen.
You are more who you are, your relationship to him, connection to him, and he produces fruit out of that. So I think a church must do great commandment work before it does great commission work.
Wow.
Or people become trophies.
Wow.
The vision becomes more important than people. The gospel can be set aside. Care and love of that trauma, that hurt. You don't put someone in a football game with a broken leg. You take time for people. But it also speaks to the pastors. And here's what I would say to pastors is when you decide to let God's unconditional love for you permeate where you're really living out of that and not out of the metrics, you're going to be healthy and then you're going to love people the right way. And fruit flows from that. I've just have never not witnessed something grow when people are being loved on and cared for and holiness and the guidelines are so, like God's kingdom works. It really does work. Amen. And it does produce fruit that lasts. And so it's not like sometimes when this language is used, it's like, oh, let's don't do anything. Let's just sit and receive and receive and receive. Well, that just it takes obedience. Obedience comes, but pastors have been controlled by the metrics on the front of the church of attendance and last week's offering from the old churches. Right. And then what they do, and then now they have to present a vision to get people moving so they can hit those metrics and feel good about their ministry, so they can feel good about themselves. And it's just a really toxic cycle, but that can all be busted up if spiritual maturity is the goal, and spiritual mature people do reach out to people. You're not spiritually mature if you're not doing outreach and all these other areas. But when you lead with vision, and especially starting at a church, so I thought about this talk today. Is this coming into a new culture? Is this something? I think it's when you start, it's heavy, and I think it's something that needs to be reiterated as you go.
Yeah.
But if you lead with vision and a great commission without the great commandment, what people hear in their mind is, I'm not good enough for that leader.
Wow. Stop there. If you lead with vision, people hear, I'm not good enough for that leader. Wow.
Yes. Because God said, I'm with you on your worst day. And if people can get that sense from the leader, like, when my life blows up and my kids aren't doing well, he's already promised he's going to be with me forever. The agenda and the mission of the church seems to be less important as I come to the meetings or coaching and equipping. It's not about what we're doing. It's about who we are. People want to do something. They want to accomplish things, and they can grow in that. But it'd be like getting married and then both spouses look at each other. If you remain fit, if our life goes awesome, if we make this much money, and if we accomplish things, then our love will be complete. That is the exact opposite of the covenant that we make with God, with our spouse. You have to be all in together first, love unconditionally, and then you start working out the mission and the vision. And I just think churches have that reversed, and leaders have that reversed in a lot of ways.
Wes, I just so appreciate it. And here's what people have to know about Wes Duff, if you don't already. You need to know this about him. And we'll talk about this next. And that is that, so Wes is not devoid of vision, not at all. We're talking about a guy that when we talked about the fact that we'd love to see, a whole bunch of churches planted throughout the Great Lakes region, Wes was one of the first early adopters that said, we'd love to see a minimum of 10 churches planted up in our area, minimum. You've got plenty of vision. You are being coached by Ralph Moore, who is arguably the most successful church planter in North American history. And Ralph is just an incredible human being. And I was blessed to introduce you and Ralph, and you guys took it from there, and Ralph has been coaching you, and you guys have, so there's no shortage of vision in Ralph, and there's no shortage of vision in my friend Wes Duff. So it's not a question about having a lack of vision. It's a question of when do you introduce that vision? And what I hear you saying is you only introduce it after people are convinced of your love, that people care. They want to know, do you care more about them or about the vision? I want to ask you, though, when rubber meets the road, Wes, did your board start getting a little frustrated with you? Did you ever have any tension there, like, okay, Wes, do you have a vision? Because you're not leading with it, so is there one there? And how did you navigate that?
Yeah, I found out about it after the fact. After the rubber had met the road, I think they took a sigh of relief. I had one board member tell me, like, in the first few months, I didn't think you knew what you were doing because you were asking us what we thought. You were asking our opinion. You were leading in a collaborative way, and that's not. I don't know if it's not what they wanted. At least it's not what they were used to.
Yeah.
And so it's usually Moses brings the tablet down, everyone else executes it, and so. Yeah, so I think there was some of that, and to bring clarification to the vision, and we are merging attractional and missional together, and there's lots of philosophy change, so I think there has to be a lot of breathing room. When the rubber meets the road in this model that I'm talking about, I think you leak vision as you go.
Yeah.
I think it's crucial. So if you treat vision like the first 100 days of Congress and you slam everything through, it's going to be a train wreck. But you got to allow the execution. I think we should talk about the vision a lot longer to let it permeate and breathe, and especially if you're in a high conflict church. Red Cedar doesn't take as long because they're willing just to go.
Okay.
There's not a lot of conflict here. They love vision and all that. In my past church, I had to let execution hold off a bit to get all the emotional responses out so they weren't blowing up the execution during the emotional stage of that, if it was something different. Hey, we're planting a whole new church. We're changing the worship style. Well, there's some people that might have some things to say about that. And if they hear it from the pulpit first, that's probably not wise. You let them fight it out for a while before you do execution. So yes, I think we had some people wondering if I was ever going to move, act, or what's this person all about?
When in reality, there's no shortage of a desire to move. You guys are in the process of planting your first church. You can't wait to plant yours. You and I were talking. I'm blessed to be in a mentoring relationship with you. And you were talking about already thinking about your second, your third. There's no lack of vision. That's what I want our pastors and church leaders to hear today. It's not a lack of vision. It's the realization of the timing of the vision. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so what you just were absolutely committed to was showing them, the great commandment before the Great Commission. So you chose not to lead with vision, but I don't mean this to sound as, as sentimental as it does, but you led with love. You led by making sure that they knew that this pastor loves you. I'm not here for the show. I'm not here. I'm actually here to love you. And once they became convinced of your love, then I just think you're going to go so much further because you've got people on your team now. Oh my gosh, you've used a football analogy twice. You've got people that are loyal on your team, and you're going to have a lot more W's because of the fact that they're loyal to you and loyal to the vision, and they're going after that now. And you've got people like, let's end by just talking about this first church plant. How many people are going on that first church plant that you guys are doing?
Well, what we've launched is the ability to work towards a microsite or maybe a campus. We've left the end open to let the fruit direct that. But we have launched 7 new small groups. We went public with that 2 days ago.
Okay.
So it's all on the internet. Mailers are going out. So 7 small group leaders that have been trained. We have 2 apprentices in each group. So 21 people. We got coaches over them. And we're starting to permeate that town with we're offering discipleship for full life. You want to be, wherever you're at, you want to follow Christ, be mature. So it's our evangelism is a call to discipleship. And as we are doing that, we're offering, we're going to teach them the rhythms of grace, hope, joy, family help, provide support. And the emails are starting to come in. We've probably had, we went public a day and a half ago. We have maybe 25 people interested from a town of 2,000 who says, I want to join something. My life has to be different. And then we're taking, our next town would be Barron, and our core team is going to hang with the Shatek area, until these small group leaders are equipped. And then soon as we went public, someone called and asked if we had a need of a building in Barron. And so God is opening up these doors for us. And Ralph Moore has been a tremendous vision coach, but also nuts and bolts, not to mess up things and do it right the first time. We don't have to recreate the wheel. He has a lot of info. So we're just pumped about introducing people to Jesus and discipling them and walking by them. But that message still holds for us. We're here to grow them, love them, and be there with them no matter whatever they go through.
So, leaders, you can tell, pastors, you can tell why I love Wes Duff so much. I just love his heart. I love his spirit. I hope you've been encouraged today. I want to ask you to do me a favor and share this podcast with other people that need to capture this idea of both the Great Commandment and the Great Commission, and leading with the Great Commandment, if you will, so that then when we have vision, we catch vision for the Great Commission, that we've got their buy-in. And understand, this is all about reaching more people for Jesus. Ultimately, this is all about seeing God's kingdom come, His will being done, and a boatload of more people coming to know Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. That's why Wes is doing that. That's why we wanted to interview him for this podcast. Wes, thanks so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your heart. I appreciate your spirit. And let's together go after the kingdom. Let's lead with the great commandment of loving people and caring for them. And then plenty of vision when Holy Spirit says so to go forward so we can see the Great Commission realized in our setting. Thanks so much for joining me today for this episode of Spirit-Anointed Leadership. Again, Wes, thanks so much for being with us today. I look forward to seeing you back for another edition of Spirit Anointed Leadership next Monday. Have a great week.